Welcome back to Global Crypto, the channel where we break down the biggest moves in the world of digital finance so you never miss a beat. If you've been following the XRP space, today's story is going to hit different. Because what just happened, what was quietly announced this week, is the kind of moment that people in the financial world have been waiting years to see. We are talking about a real, live working transaction that connected a public blockchain to the global banking system in near real time. Not a concept. Not a white paper. An actual transaction that moved real money across borders, across banks, and landed in a real bank account on the other side of the world, all in under 5 seconds. So grab your coffee, sit tight, and pay close attention, because this one deserves your full attention. Let's start by talking about who is involved here, because the names alone should tell you everything about how serious this moment truly is. We are looking at 4 absolute giants: Ondo Finance, Kinexys by JPMorgan, Mastercard, and Ripple. Now, you don't need me to explain who JPMorgan is. They are the largest bank in the United States, a financial titan with trillions of dollars in assets under management. Mastercard is one of the most recognized payment networks on the planet, processing billions of transactions every single year. Ondo Finance is quickly becoming one of the most important players in the tokenized real-world asset space. And Ripple, well, if you're watching Global Crypto, you already know Ripple has been pushing the boundaries of cross-border payments using the XRP Ledger for years now. The fact that all 4 of these powerhouses came together to run this pilot is not just interesting. It is a signal, a very loud, very clear signal about where global finance is heading next. So what exactly did they do? Let's break this down in plain language so everyone watching can understand the full significance of what just happened. Ripple held a position in Ondo Finance's product called OUSG, which stands for Ondo Short-Term US Government Treasuries. Think of this as a tokenized version of US Treasury bonds, sitting on the XRP Ledger as a blockchain-based digital asset. Ripple decided to redeem a portion of that holding. Ondo processed that redemption directly on the XRP Ledger. From there, Mastercard's multi-token network stepped in and routed the fiat settlement instructions over to Kinexys, which is JPMorgan's blockchain-based payment platform. And then JPMorgan delivered actual US dollars directly to Ripple's bank account in Singapore. Start to finish, the entire sequence was completed in under 5 seconds. A tokenized asset moved from a public blockchain through global banking infrastructure and arrived as real cash in a real bank account in real time. Let that sink in for a moment. Now, here is why the speed of this transaction matters so much. Think about how international settlements work today in the traditional banking world. If you are moving money across borders, especially between different banks in different countries, you are typically looking at 1 to 3 full business days. There are correspondent banks involved, manual reconciliation steps, cut-off windows where you literally cannot process transactions after a certain hour, and entire weekends where the system is just sitting still. None of that existed in this transaction. This settlement happened outside of traditional banking hours entirely. It did not wait for a business day. It did not require manual intervention. It processed automatically, and it was done before most people could even finish reading about it. That is a completely different world from what we currently consider normal in global finance. Let's talk about Ondo Finance for a second, because if you're not already paying close attention to this company, now is the time to start. Ondo Finance is a tokenized real-world asset platform, and their OUSG product, the one used in this pilot, currently holds around $770 million in total value, locked across multiple blockchains including Ethereum, Solana, Polygon, and yes, the XRP Ledger. The broader Ondo protocol crossed $3 billion in total value, locked back in April of 2026. That is not a small experiment anymore. That is a fully operational financial product that institutional players are actively using. And the fact that Ripple itself was holding OUSG on the XRP Ledger before redeeming it in this pilot tells you something important. This is not theoretical adoption. This is real capital, real institutions, making real moves on this blockchain right now. Ian DeBode, the president of Ondo Finance, put it perfectly when he described what this milestone means for the future. He said that this is the first time tokenized US Treasuries have settled across borders and banks in near real time. and that by connecting public blockchain infrastructure with interbank settlement rails, they are laying the groundwork for markets that never close. Read that again. Markets that never close. That is a fundamental shift in the architecture of global finance. Right now, markets have hours, they have windows, they have holidays and weekends. But the vision being built right now, with the XRP Ledger at the center of it, is a financial system that operates continuously, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. That is not a dream anymore. That is what this pilot just demonstrated is possible. And Mastercard's role in this story is equally important and often gets overlooked in the conversation. Inoi Kimar. Raj Damodaran, who is the Executive Vice President of Blockchain and Digital Assets at Mastercard, made it very clear that the focus is now shifting from proof of concept to real scale. He said that as tokenized assets continue to see strong institutional momentum, the attention is quickly moving toward how tokenized commerce can actually operate at scale in real time. Mastercard's multi-token network was the bridge in this transaction. It was the piece of infrastructure that took the redemption instruction from the blockchain side and routed it seamlessly into the traditional banking system through Kinexys. That is an incredibly important role. Mastercard is not just watching the tokenization revolution from the sidelines. They are actively building the pipes that will make it work at a global level. JPMorgan's Kinexys platform deserves a spotlight too, because what they brought to this transaction was the ability to operate inside the regulated banking world at the same speed that blockchains operate. Kinexys is JPMorgan's blockchain-based payment infrastructure, built specifically for programmable payments, tokenized assets, and near real-time settlement across global markets. Zach Chestnut, the global head of commercialization at Kinexys, was direct about what comes next. He said that for widespread adoption of tokenized financial products to happen, you need wholesale, cross-industry collaboration, across geographies, across global banking infrastructure, and across public blockchains. And he's right. This is not something one company can build alone. It requires the entire ecosystem, the blockchain networks, the payment rails, the banks, the asset managers, all working together. And that is exactly what this pilot demonstrated is now achievable. Here is some broader context that makes this story even more important. The tokenized US Treasury market crossed $10 billion for the very first time back in February of 2026. By early April of 2026, it had already grown to approximately $12.88 billion, a 225% increase in just 15 months. And that is just one slice of the tokenized real-world asset market. The broader tokenized RWA market surged by over 256% from around $5.4 billion at the start of 2025 to nearly $19.3 billion by the end of the first quarter of 2026. These are not niche numbers anymore. This is a full-blown institutional movement, and it is accelerating at a pace that most people outside of the crypto world are not even aware of yet. But you watching this right now, you know what's coming. Let's zoom out and talk about what the XRP Ledger specifically brings to this equation, because it is doing something very important in this story. The XRPL was used as the execution layer, the blockchain where the actual tokenized asset lived and where the redemption was triggered. And the reason that matters is because the XRP Ledger is built for speed, for low cost, and for institutional-grade reliability. The blockchain leg of this transaction settled in under 5 seconds. Not minutes. Not hours. Seconds. And the XRP Ledger has been seeing massive growth recently. Rising transfer volumes, increasing adoption of tokenized US Treasury products, and record network address growth. These are all signals that institutional use cases are not just being explored on XRPL. They are actively landing, one significant deal at a time. Now think about what this means for the average XRP holder watching this video right now. Every time a major institution chooses the XRP Ledger as the settlement layer for a historic transaction like this one, it validates the network, it validates the technology, it validates the decision that millions of retail investors made years ago when they believed in what Ripple was building. This pilot was not just a financial services experiment, it was a public demonstration to every bank, every asset manager, and every government treasury department on Earth that the XRP Ledger can handle the real thing. Real assets, real money, real borders, real banks, all connected, All settled, all done, in the time it takes you to read a single paragraph on your phone screen. Something else worth noting here is the historical context of how this pilot builds on previous work. Almost exactly 1 year ago, back in May of 2025, JPMorgan's Kinexys, Chainlink, and Ondo Finance completed a different test, one that moved a tokenized US Treasury fund between a public and a permissioned blockchain. That was already an important step, but the new 2026 pilot goes significantly further. It adds real cross-border movement. It adds cross-bank settlement between institutions in different countries. It adds actual fiat delivery, real dollars, to a foreign bank account. This is not iteration. This is a meaningful leap forward. And the fact that they chose the XRP Ledger to power this next-level version of the experiment speaks volumes about where confidence in the network currently stands among the biggest names in global finance. Let's also address what forecasts are saying about where this market is heading long-term. Boston Consulting Group has put out projections suggesting the tokenization market could reach up to $16 trillion by 2030. 16 trillion. That is a number that is almost hard to comprehend. But when you look at what is being built right now, the infrastructure, the pilots, the institutional partnerships, the regulatory frameworks slowly taking shape around the world, a $16 trillion tokenization market by the end of this decade does not sound like fantasy. It sounds like a roadmap. And right now, the XRP Ledger is actively positioning itself as one of the core rails that this entire ecosystem will run on. If even a fraction of that 16 trillion flows through XRPL, the implications for the network and for XRP are enormous. One thing that global crypto always wants to emphasize is that these kinds of institutional developments do not happen overnight, and they do not happen in isolation. Every pilot, every partnership, every announcement like today's builds on the last one. Ondo brought OUSG to the XRP Ledger. Ripple held it as an asset. Mastercard built the bridge. JPMorgan provided the regulated settlement rails. And together they completed something that has never been done before in the history of finance. That is a compounding story. Each of these institutions is now financially and reputationally committed to making this vision work at scale. They have published this. They have announced it publicly. There is no walking this back. The train has left the station, and it is moving fast. Before we wrap up today's episode, let's think about the bigger picture one more time and what it means for you as someone paying attention to the crypto and XRP space. The narrative around XRP has always been about one thing at its core: global payments. Faster, cheaper, more efficient movement of value across borders. And what this pilot just proved is that the XRP Ledger can sit at the center of an entirely new financial architecture, one where tokenized real-world assets, public blockchains, interbank payment rails, and global settlement infrastructure all operate as a single, unified, always-on system. The old financial world ran on business hours and manual processes. The new one runs on blockchain rails and settles in seconds. And XRP just proved, with JPMorgan, Mastercard, and Ondo Finance standing right beside it, that it belongs in that new world. That is going to do it for today's episode on global crypto. If this story got you excited, and honestly it should, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and share this video with anyone in your circle who needs to understand what is happening in the XRP and tokenization space right now. We will keep bringing you the stories that matter, the developments that move markets, and the analysis that helps you stay ahead of the curve. Thank you so much for watching. Stay informed, stay patient, and we will see you in the next one, right here on Global Crypto.